Right now, it's a wild time to be a Halo 2 fan. There's just surprisingly a lot going on for Halo 2 right now. There's a $20,000 bounty for LASO Deathless. 343 announced that they're working on restoring cut Halo 2 campaign levels from Bungie's original development days. And fan project Insignia is bringing the original Xbox Live back to life in a fan-made Xbox Live replacement that'll work both on original Xboxes and emulation, which means original Halo 2 on the Xbox may have connectivity again. There's just a lot about Halo 2 right now going on. It's very odd for this year, but it's cool. But recently, while we've been on the topic of Halo 2, especially with the influx of new Halo players going for that LASO bounty, there's been a big discussion about which version of Halo 2 is actually the best. The Master Chief Collection, which is the current version that most people have access to, it's on PC and Xbox. But interestingly enough, the top contenders going for the LASO bounty are playing on original Xbox hardware with the OG Halo 2, because some features in the game and just the way the game operates on the original hardware is different from the remakes later on. And there's lists of pros and cons to both of these, but literally no one, there's not anyone out there that we've seen that is out there campaigning for the third version of Halo 2, the often forgotten dark sheep of Halo 2 versions, Halo 2 Vista for Windows Vista. This bad boy is really interesting. It was released in an odd time. It came out in 2007, the same year that Halo 3 released, exclusively on Windows Vista computers, and back in the day, it was often cited as being the worst port of not only a Halo game, but also just any game from console to PC. And while we currently have Halo pros like Jervalen and Monopoly playing on the classic Halo 2, and speedrunners who are great at Halo 2 playing on MCC, we don't see a lot of anyone trying anything on Halo 2 Vista. So let's take a closer look here. Now, if you haven't already watched our video on the Halo 2 bounty that Critical is putting up a $20,000 bounty for anyone who can beat Halo 2 LASO Deathless, we did an entire video breaking down the challenge in depth, and we'll remind you guys to go check it out at the end of this video if you haven't seen it. But we talk about in that video how the differences between Halo 2 on the Xbox and Halo 2 on MCC play into a massive difference in gameplay across these versions. The original Halo 2 runs at just 30 ticks per second, where in the anniversary version of the game, it was brought up to 60 ticks, which essentially means when you're playing in a challenge like LASO, the enemies can shoot significantly faster with 60 ticks, and a lot of the glitches that you could originally do in the OG version are no longer possible. We're talking super jumps, sword flying, and ghosting to get through walls. But the bright side of playing on MCC is you have access to all the skulls right there. You can load up a playlist and jump right into the challenge without any setup, and in some cases there are glitches that only work in the MCC version that don't work in the classic version. And then we came along and we're like, hey, why don't we look at this challenge but in the version that nobody is playing, to the point where this version of the game wasn't even brought up in Critical's bounty video, because who the hell is playing original Halo 2 Vista? And upon first glance at Halo 2 Vista, it is interesting because it seemingly has the worst of both versions implemented in the game. But before we really dive into Halo 2 Vista, let's go back and look at the development history of this game. Besides Halo Combat Evolved originally releasing on Xbox, it did see a release on PC as well as a Macintosh version, and shortly after Halo 2's release, it's likely that Microsoft was already working on a PC port of the game. However, since Microsoft also was launching Windows Vista and was fully expecting Vista to just kill Windows XP and become the new operating system that everyone loved to use, they thought that timing a Halo 2 PC release with the launch of Windows Vista could be a great way to get more people to adopt the new operating system. Microsoft tasked their own internal studio named Hired Gun to take on the job of porting Halo 2 to PC, and also was to feature the same Xbox Live experience that had become explosively popular with Halo 2 originally on the Xbox. Matter of fact, Halo 2 Vista was originally planned to include cross-platform play, which is crazy to think of that even being a consideration, especially for 2007 standards, but this ended up not coming into fruition. As we can likely suspect, the fact that the game did see a short delay before its launch, along with the fact that the game didn't quite run the best when it came out, they probably didn't have a whole lot of extra time to plan how to integrate crossplay just yet. Still, it is worth noting there are some interesting things. The game had full Xbox Live connectivity. Even to this day, I loaded up my Halo 2 disc that I've never used before, but I got on eBay, and surprisingly enough, my activation product key still worked. And after I activated it, I had access to my Xbox dashboard profile on PC. I even sent Luke a message to test it out and see if it worked. And yeah, it still works to this day. I was very surprised about that. And Halo 2 on Vista also introduced achievements, something that was not in the original Halo 2. It also had this new feature called tray and play technology. It was going to be the future for Windows, where you just put a game disc in and it automatically plays it, just like an Xbox or an Xbox 360 did. You didn't have to pre-install stuff ahead of time. It would allow you to play the game while it was installing, kind of like what Xbox One tried to do at its launch, where you could load up a game while it was installing. This is going to be the new big thing. They never used tray and play technology ever again after this. It also had a special editing mode addition in the game where you could make your own maps, which kind of was a cool precursor to Forge. There was a really popular version of this in Combat Evolved Custom Edition, and they included this feature in Halo 2, but it was nowhere near as good as the Combat Evolved version of it was. It just seemed like a lot of features that were utilized a lot by the Halo community on the PC side of things were scrapped from this version of the game. Now, Halo 2 Vista was critically panned in a lot of cases for just the lack of features that were staples in the original game. They removed co-op from Halo, which doesn't ever make sense. And while there was some performance increases, the general consensus was the game still felt really dated for a 2007 release. Now, Halo 2 Vista's player base never really was all that great. There was a little bump in players when Xbox Live originally shut down in 2010 and nobody had any way to play Halo 2, so players did jump onto the Windows version for a little while, but after that, a lot of original Halo 2 hardcore fans opted for playing on X-Link Kai, which is a LAN emulation program that lets you virtually play online. 343 announced in 2013 they would be shutting down the servers for Halo 2 Vista, as the player base was never really above about 20 players at any given moment. And it was finally shut down in 2015. Now, Halo 2 Vista, interestingly enough, also runs at 60 ticks, like MCC's version of the game. And while some of the textures look a little interesting, and the lighting and shading also a little different, you don't have the accessibility of having all of the skulls readily available when you're playing Halo 2. You have to go through and hunt down all the skulls and make separate save profiles for each of them, like you have to do in the original Halo 2 to set things up. Now, the interesting thing about Halo 2 Vista is that the game almost is really cool and really accessible, but not in the state that it released in. A few years ago, there was a big fan community mod known as Project Cartographer, which added a ton of quality of life updates to the game, like being able to unlock and activate skulls from the menu, being able to adjust a lot of video settings, and there were other mods and tools out there that allowed you to even adjust the tick rate back down to 30 ticks, which did in fact enable those glitches to be done once again. It was just that simple. However, for a bounty or speedrunning sakes, this in a way is a third-party program integrated into Halo 2 Vista, or it counts as a mod, so it would be ineligible for any challenges. So for this video, we specifically just looked at the old version of Halo 2, but Project Cartographer has a lot of really cool things that we'll mention later on. But oh boy, classic Halo 2. Now, I don't have the beefiest computer in the world, but I do have a decent enough gaming computer to realize that the optimization must have been really problematic when this game originally came out, because I see screen tearing pretty regularly for a 2007 game. 343 did shut the online servers down in 2015, though you can still log in with your Xbox Live account, which I thought was kind of cool, and I can see when my friends are popping online just like you could all the way back in 2007. And while there's plenty of room to talk about some of the downgrades and bad things that came with Halo 2 Vista, there are a few interesting things that are exclusive here to Halo 2 Vista. Apparently, there's a secret skull that only showed up in the Vista version of Halo 2, which can be located on the level Regret. Now, I struggled through Regret Legendary, and honestly, if you haven't played through Halo 2 Legendary and you don't have like really good memory when it comes to playing through the level normally without just skipping past everything, it's actually kind of challenging. But I struggled through it just to get to this room where allegedly this mysterious Vista skull is, and yeah, I looked everywhere. I couldn't find it. There's forums online saying that there was a mysterious Vista skull located on top of the pillars by the hologram, and all I found were these grenades. I don't know. I was doing everything right. I was on Legendary. No skull. I don't think it exists. I think it's just an urban legend that was passed down from generation to generation. Interestingly enough, on Oracle, the elevator glitch that gives you invincibility that works in MCC still does work in Halo 2 Vista, which means this glitch likely originated from Halo 2 Vista and is as a result of the 60 tick rate. But it is interesting that you technically could do a LASO run where you have the original Grunt Birthday Party skull, which causes all enemy headshots to explode like a plasma grenade, not the updated version, and also have invincibility on Oracle, something unique completely to the Halo 2 Vista experience. Co-op mode did end up getting scrapped from this version of the game, though modders have found a way to repair it, kind of. At least enable the co-op mode, even though it doesn't work. There's a couple of levels where with the right mod, you can play co-op, and apparently it doesn't really work all that well. One player's in third person, and they don't have an actual correct looking display, and only a handful of levels actually work, the rest just crash. Also, while I was playing through the campaign, there was just some oddities I noticed in this game where, while the performance and frame rate is higher, the quality of the textures themselves are sometimes much lower than even what the Xbox counterparts were. This is especially present in the cutscenes, and it just felt like when I was looking at these cutscenes compared to the original Xbox cutscenes, there was some sort of visual difference, and I at first couldn't quite figure out what it was that made it seem so different. But for whatever reason, I'd felt like the original Xbox Halo 2 graphics looked more cinematic, where these felt more like just something happening in the game engine, which they are, but the other ones felt better. I kind of dived into this a little bit more, just trying to figure out exactly why I was feeling like there were some big visual differences, and other people have pointed out in the past that there just in general are big differences between the Vista version and the original version when it comes down to things like lighting bloom, which just adds this ambiance to Halo 2, and it's really important in the atmosphere in some sections and cutscenes. A lot of little things like weather, fog, and wind effects are toned down or not even in the Vista version of the game, and the lighting definitely is noticeably different here as well. Also, I thought it was worth noting that my game defaulted to low settings, even though I'm on a decently high-end computer, and for whatever reason, Admiral Hood, he doesn't have eyebrows in this version of the game. Halo 2 Vista was used for the Master Chief Collection when they were bringing Halo 2 to the Xbox and then later back to the PC again, and a lot of these graphical issues were originally in MCC as well, carried over from Halo 2 Vista. And it wasn't until Season 8 where we actually saw a lot of these visual inconsistencies updated and fixed to be more like the Halo 2 counterpart from the original Xbox. And you guys should definitely go check out Y's YouTube video of comparing the graphical changes between Season 7 and Season 8 of Xbox, because you can see a lot of these same things that we're talking about here in Halo 2 Vista are present in Season 7, but Season 8 has them cleaned up. Also, since this is based off of the original version of Halo 2, the Grunt Birthday Party skull works differently than the MCC version. So while in classic Halo 2, the Grunt Birthday Party skull made it where any headshot explodes like a plasma grenade, in 343's remake, they updated the Grunt Birthday Party to instead work the same way it did in Halo 3, where confetti popped out and you hear the yay. Now, the original version of Grunt Birthday Party had some advantages that can be applied in LASO, which means that this version has that original version of Grunt Birthday Party, but it at 60 ticks instead, which does make it unique from both other versions. There was also 2 multiplayer maps that were exclusive to Halo 2 Vista, District and Uplift, which were included in the Master Chief Collection. However, this version does not have the Halo 2 original DLC level Tombstone. Also, I don't know if this is just me reading into things too closely, but I could swear it seems like in some cases the FOV just feels a little bit off, or maybe everything feels zoomed in. But when I was driving the Ghost on Outskirts, it felt to be moving incredibly slower than what I'm used to, and maybe that's just my imagination, but it did feel like this was the slowest Ghost I've ever driven. And also, in general, this game didn't have an FOV slider, which was something that Project Cartographer ended up adding to Halo 2, which did provide one major quality of life feature right there. But actually, if you look into what Project Cartographer actually did, it did a lot in bringing Halo 2 into a much better state, which is the version that I would say 90% of people who do actually go back and play Halo 2 to some extent usually end up using, because they even have been able to bring some online servers back to life. Now, Luke and I also did kind of jump in on our own time to playing LASO solo deathless. Not like we thought we would actually even have a chance at pulling off this challenge, but just because of the fact that so many people have been attempting it on Xbox and on MCC, that we just thought it'd be funny to be the only people to actually try this on Halo 2 Vista. We know it wouldn't be legal by any means. A lot of people did ask if the bounty challenge could be done in Halo 2 Vista, and while we think technically the challenge would be equally as difficult for the same reasons more or less that original Halo 2 and MCC have, if you dig into the actual rules for the project, Halo 2 Vista is not officially banned from the competition, but it does show up in the frequently asked questions section, where it is discussed that since Halo 2 and the Project Cartographer versions of the game are typically banned under normal speedrunning rules, and the fact that there is no actual advantage of Halo 2 Vista over the Anniversary or the Xbox versions, it's literally the worst of all worlds. While it's not officially outright banned, it is very heavily discouraged. Apparently, it's very easy to cheat, and it opens up this can of worms when they would go into the verification process to see if the run is eligible for the bounty, if someone did manage to pull it all off. But yeah, if anyone was actually serious about running this challenge and they're playing on Halo 2 Vista, I would probably think something's up too, because there's no reason anybody should purposefully be going for the long gauntlet that the bounty was on Halo 2 Vista. And of course, I also decided to reach out to General Kid about whether or not he knows of any other big differences in Halo 2 Vista maybe we were missing for this video that we definitely should talk about. Make sure you guys are all subscribed to General Kid because he makes great Halo content, but he did point out that the trees on Delta Halo, Metropolis, and Outskirts intro cutscene are all dead and have no leaves if you're playing on an NVIDIA GPU. The Wraith at the end of the Great Journey mission will always flip over and a weaponless brute will just be walking around. I think that's funny. I have no idea why that happens. There's something called Z lighting issues that cause lights to be visible behind solid objects, and there's also some known visual effect glitches surrounding Tartarus's gravity hammer when playing on an NVIDIA GPU. Also in the past, General Kid's done a video exploring some extra multiplayer levels that were kind of included in the game, but not really. There's the example multiplayer level, which was used as an example to show how you could customize your own Halo 2 maps. This introduced the suppressed SMG for the very first time in all of Halo history, and it's a pretty chill, small map. But then in the game files, apparently Game Cheat 13 discovered that there were some cut levels that were existing in there, and a hired gun employee leaked the actual files of the maps themselves. But essentially, there were 2 extra example type maps that were supposed to be shown off, one which was called Earth City, and I really like it. It's a small little map. It might not be the best for multiplayer, but it's a cool little location. And there was also this other map called Beach Battle, which is kind of interesting. There's, you know, it's a beach. I guess you'd battle on it. Kind of neat. We didn't really look into the nowadays multiplayer side of things because it's honestly probably a bit antiquated, knowing that we could just matchmake in MCC. But from what we can see, it does seem like there's still a smaller community on Project Cartographer still, hosted hosting some custom game nights and Slayer matches and stuff. And I totally get why some players would still play this version. The whole atmosphere and the user interface experience is unique. It's different from what MCC offers, and it's just a cool way to play. Plus, it works on literally older hardware, so I guess if you wanted to boot up your old Windows Vista computer, maybe you could still get this version to work where MCC wouldn't work. I don't know. I'm just trying to find that exact niche player group that is still playing on Project Cartographer. I don't know. We just thought it'd be really fun to take a closer look at Halo 2 Vista of all things. It's just something different. If you like this video, make sure you are subscribed with notifications on. Huge shout out to our patrons over on Patreon. We are in the process of doing a fresh new boot on Patreon with some cool exclusive stuff to the people who support us over there. So hey, if you've enjoyed our content for a while, you want to help us out a little bit more, we're going to be updating some stuff on there soon, and you could help support our channel, and that'd be cool. All right, we'll see you guys all next time with a brand new video.